He probably figures something fishy is going on, considering he hasn't seen the human player doing anything else, and he hasn't expanded as of yet. And shock, Vex Marquis' strategy is mass Dragonhawks. If you look at his base right now, he has 2 Griffin Aviaries that were just built, and with that being said, the Undead's doing such a fast tech, he's going to have the Undead player is going to have a very difficult time being able to push a player who's going tier 2 units. So another nice thing Vex Marquis did, after he was done creeping, he had a healing scroll ready for his footman, so he would be able to go and harass the Undead player right away. Vex Marquis is very much playing the control hero levels game. If you'll notice what's going on, the Undead player isn't even level 2. I mean, even after that big creep, he only has a level 1 Death Knight, and that is a major problem. Without Aura, the Undead army is much less versatile, like nowhere near as quick, nowhere near as powerful. So the Undead player right now, the human player just saw Black run down and basically start creeping this camp. So the human player is like, oh, LOL, I'm gonna run over here and kill you. And basically, if you can think intuition, okay, you saw the Undead player run in this direction. He's creeping his orange, or he's creeping his merchant. Okay, what's the bigger camp that he can creep? The merchant. So he's creeping the merchant. Vex Marquis runs over, notices an ensnared statue, and immediately starts focusing it down. Be very opportunistic, especially when you're playing the harass game versus an Undead player so early. You would find often that you're not going to be able to do as much if you're not looking for those weak units of like, oh, I'll just focus his Lich and whatever. That's not the way it works. You always have to be on the ball as far as being able to... You have to be on the ball as far as being able to watch out and be opportunistic as a human player and use your bolts effectively. Vex Marquis did creep a level 2, almost level 3 MK in such a short amount of time. And if you think about it, people are always like, I can't get my MK to level 3 and I can't, do this or that. I would often say that you should try something like this. This is a very interesting strategy Vex Marquis is doing, and right now it's proving very useful in that he's massing these Dragonhawks with an expansion that went up literally unharassed and basically unscouted. So he's putting up this expansion. He has plenty of gold to produce Dragonhawks. The Undead player is going to be doing a standard 10 or 11 minute Destro push, which is going to be rendered effectively useless considering the amount of harassing Vex Marquis has done. And I think what right now this game is proving to me, and it should be proving to you guys, is that just because it's human versus undead doesn't mean you can't take the driver's seat. Like, right now Vex Marquis has been in control of essentially the entire game. The undead player hasn't been able to do anything, and if he would have tried to do something, he would have gotten his ass kicked. He has a guard tower at his main, he's producing mass Dragonhawks at tier 2 without even teching, so he already has an extra Dragonhawk. An extra Dragonhawk or 2 than he would normally have. So, here comes the Undead player's push with only 2 destroyers, which would normally be a lot more considering the human player in this game isn't going to be really... Like, considering the amount that an Undead player would normally have, Vex Marquis did an excellent job harassing. He presses Alt, notices this Destro is very weak, always be pressing Alt. With level 1 coil, the Undead player essentially can't save his Destro from the amount of damage. He has his MK, and I think it's really important to see how he uses his MK. Basically, at this point he figures he can't kill the Undead's DK, so he's essentially just going to pick off a couple ghouls, and he was able to kill a destroyer as well as damage another and damage the vast majority of the Undead's army. The DK has no coil mana left. At such a low level DK, coils are very priceless, and he's basically used them all up. Okay, so Vex Marquis takes his Dragonhawks and runs away from this fight. Very smart choice. At first here, just simply because Destro's with mana rape. He's going to be doing some pretty standard micro to move these Dragonhawks away. If you notice, since the destroyers do splash damage, it becomes very difficult for the human player to like keep a vast majority of his D-Hawks alive all at once. Okay, here's a pretty smart move by Vex Marquis. He chases around the Death Knight with these Dragonhawks who have the exact same movement speed, while at the same time flanking with his Archmage. This is why Twisted Meadows can be such a good undead, such a good any race map if you know how to abuse it. Basically, he's tracking down this Death Knight, knowing that he's going to be able to catch it because he's been scouting it the entire time. It's sort of what Night Elf players do with like they go the Owl Scout second in Night Elf Mirror, so they can always keep track of what their opponent is doing. And it's essentially the human player was doing the exact same thing here. Vex Marquise, I wouldn't say he gets lucky, but capitalizes on Black's retarded mistake here. He had two obsidian statues queued up to his Death Knight, and they basically both get wasted because his army speed is a lot faster than the speed of those obsidian statues. While all this was happening, Black did his best to capitalize on the human's absence at his expansion while he was trying to save his Death Knight, and started attacking this town hall. Magic damage, however, incredibly pathetic versus human buildings, which are fortified armor, so he was essentially able to make no progress besides killing some peasants. Vex Marquise is now making another tower at his main. When your opponent starts to mass destroyers, it's good to have a few towers in your base, 1, 2, 3-ish, just based on the simple fact that they're going to probably try and run in and harass you a bit, and it's going to start being a pain in the ass, and it's going to start costing you a lot of money if you have to consistently TP back to your base. Undead player trying sort of a sweet move here, solo creeping his Lich in the absence of his Death Knight, while trying to take down the human expansion with ghouls. Basically not working out too well for him. The Lich is low HP, and all he's doing is massing destroyers. You would think, why would the Undead player continue to mass destroyers versus an army like, Dragonhawks, which are very good versus destroyers? That's arguable. Basically, destroyers, pure destroyer versus pure D-Hawk is a micro war. It's pretty even. They both counter each other, and cost for food, they're pretty similar. So, essentially, you're going Dragonhawk, assuming you have better micro than your opponent a lot of the time. Again, Vex Marquise capitalizes on another mistake made by Black in this game, and his Expo still remains safe. Such a high amount of HP on human buildings, it's pretty crazy. Like, they can basically take a beating, and if they're being repaired by a few peasants and they have a bit of armor, which Vex Marquise has opted not to do in this game, you're basically okay. Vex Marquise notices this camp was just freshly crept out, and again, I would say the most natural assumption after this is that the Undead player is creeping the next big red. Thinking about where the Undead player is creeping is very instrumental in being able to beat them. Like, I guess that applies versus any race. If you're going to want to score a creep check, you have to think, okay, this is a good Undead player, Marquise is thinking. This red just crept out. Where do you think he's creeping? Ba-bam, the other red, the second biggest camp on the map that is in reach to him at this moment. If you look at what's going on, the Undead player has very, very little units. He's basically massing up destroyers, and he's gonna lose this Lich here. And again, that's gonna cost him another like 300 some gold just to be able to revive